This is KGW News at noon.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's News at Noon. I'm Drew Carney, so let's get right to some of this afternoon's top local headlines. And we start in Gresham, where police say a woman was killed last night after a driver who was running from police hit her. This happened near the intersection of Northeast 147th and Gleason. Officers say when they tried to pull the suspect over, they sped off and wound up hitting 4 cars before they were arrested. One person was taken to the hospital last night after a shooting in Southeast Portland. This happened around 11 o'clock at Southeast 162nd and Stark. That's where police say they found someone shot. They are expected to be okay, but the shooter managed to get away before police got there. Contractors with WashDOT are starting to clean up SR 504 today. That's the road that leads up to Mount St. Helens that's been closed since May 14th after a landslide washed part of it away. The landslide also trapped several people who had to be airlifted out of there, leaving their cars behind. Crews are working to recover those stranded cars and also get access back to both sides of the highway. But this road will not reopen to the public at all this summer. In fact, WashDOT says this first stage of the cleanup won't be done until sometime in early August. And that's a look at some of this afternoon's local headlines. All right, let's take a look inside the Weather Center right now. Rod Hill standing by. Rod, what do you have for us?
Well, we're nice and dry here on the west side, and for the most part, everybody that had early clouds, those have gone away and we're getting sunshine. But I do want to point out, storms are really firing along the Cascades and off to the east. So up in Washington, there's active current lightning strikes hitting the Mount Adams area, also up around St. Helens. We got lightning south of Bend, and we got scattered all over the place, Burns, John Day, Baker City, up into Pelton. That's a lot of lightning for relatively early in the afternoon, right? We're just getting in to the PM hours. So we'll keep an eye on that. I don't believe we have any action on the west side of the Cascades. We should stay dry. The coast, I thought, would struggle with low clouds, but I was wrong. Here's Newport. It's been partly cloudy to sunny right now in Yaquina Bay, and partly cloudy skies from our Chinook Winds Casino Resort camera in Lincoln City as well. And there's Cannon Beach. So coast looking pretty good. Downtown Portland, had some clouds to start today. Right now, though, partly to mostly sunny skies, 67. I like our chances of getting up to around 80 this afternoon. So coming up, we'll talk about the July outlook. Of course, that gets going later this week. And also, we'll track that hot air that's been hitting Texas. That air mass is about ready to move. Could impact our weather. That's coming up.
Yeah, July 1st coming up this Saturday, Rod. All right, we'll check back in with you in a few minutes. Right now, back to some local headlines. After 160 days and Senate Republicans' weeks-long walkout, Oregon's 2023 legislative session officially came to a close yesterday. Both sides said they were happy with the outcomes. Let's talk about some of the bills that passed. They include some climate resilience bills aimed at making homes better equipped for extreme weather, a bill that would improve staffing levels in hospitals all across the state, another bill that would make Narcan more broadly available. Narcan is the drug that's used to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. And a pair of bills aimed at funding and addressing the state's behavioral health crisis. All the bills that pass will now head to either the governor's desk or to the ballot. Oregon's next legislative session starts in February. All right, let's get to the latest in Russia, where mercenary rebels called off their dramatic march on Moscow over the weekend, ending the biggest threat to the Kremlin's power in decades. NBC's Kelly Kobiea has the latest for us from Ukraine.
President Zelensky said about that rebellion over the weekend in Russia that it showed that Russia's weak and in chaos. The question, can Ukraine take advantage of that on the battlefield? The deputy defense minister has said that they have made progress on the southern front, that they've retaken about 50 square miles of territory from the Russians. They released video today showing their soldiers, they say, taking over a village, the 9th village since their offensive began. There is also active fighting in the east, and that is where Wagner fighters were most effective for Russia, particularly in that battle for Bakhmut. The question now, will those Wagner fighters come back into the fold? In this audio message released by Prigozhin today, he said that only about 1% to 2% of his fighters wanted to join the regular Russian military. If true, that may answer the question that the Wagner fighters have now been taken out of the mix after this extraordinary rebellion in Russia. Adding to that, Prigozhin's message over the weekend, which not only went to his own fighters, but likely to many hundreds, possibly thousands of fighters for Russia in the battlefield. That message that military top brass were hiding the numbers of casualties, that they weren't providing the equipment needed for Russia to win the war, and crucially, that they had lied to the public and the president about why Russia went to war with Ukraine in the first place. Kelly Kobiella, NBC News, Kyiv.
All right, back to some local headlines this afternoon. A Gresham company is recalling some pineapple products because they may be contaminated with listeria. The recall affects organic pineapple sold under the Cadia label in 7 states, including Oregon, with Best Buy dates of May 24th and September 8th of 2024. The recall also includes an organic tropical fruit blend sold under the Trader Joe's label. We have the Best Buy dates for that product listed there on your screen. Keep in mind, you can return any of these products for a full refund. And so far, there are no reports of anyone getting sick. The Nurses Union is scheduled to continue negotiations for a new contract with Providence tomorrow after last week's 5-day nurses strike. But now, the union is also accusing Providence of violating state law. KGW's Thomas Schultz explains.
Oregon Nurses Association is also not claiming that Providence is forbidden from using replacement workers during a strike.
A 5-day strike involving 1,800 nurses has ended, but union representatives and Providence officials continue to argue over contract negotiations. On Friday, ONA members sent a letter to the Oregon Attorney General asking Ellen Rosenblum to investigate Providence and strikebreakers for breaking the law. They also claim Providence hired nurses from the U.S. Nursing Corporation during the 5-day strike. The union referenced Oregon law stating that no employer shall knowingly utilize any professional strikebreaker to replace an employee involved in a strike or lockout. It also cited another law that makes it a crime to knowingly serve as a strikebreaker.
When Providence uses a company like U.S. Nursing Corp., it's a way to illegally shift the balance in their favor.
On Friday, Providence officials neither confirmed nor denied they hired U.S. Nursing Corporation nurses. But Saturday, they did confirm they hired from the corporation, which provides staffing during labor disputes.
Companies like U.S. Nursing Corporation and Providence are fueled by corporate greed.
Piazza is urging the Attorney General to not allow U.S. Nursing Corporation to operate inside Oregon. But Providence officials say they would not have been able to operate hospitals without replacement nurses from U.S. Nursing Corporation.
It would be incredibly challenging, if not impossible, for us to have sourced 500 nurses to come here within 10 days' notice for this strike.
Portland, Seaside, and home health and hospice nurses initially decided to go on strike for higher wages, more staffing, and more affordable health care. Prior to the strike, Providence officials say they offered nurses a 12% raise in the first year of a proposed contract. In the following 2 years, nurses would have received additional 3% raises. Officials say the contract also included bonuses of up to $2,500 and 30 additional hours of paid time off over 3 years. But nurses say the paid time off doesn't even cover one shift each year. Before the strike, Providence said it would shut down its Portland neonatal ICU and halt all but life or death surgeries. They also advised patients in need of emergency care to seek other hospitals. But the hospital system reopened the NICU and accepted transfers for higher levels of care. They say they cared for 250 patients a day during the strike. Providence Home Health made 2,000 visits to patients during the 5 days. Thomas Schultz, KGW News.